Okay, friends, what we're going to do today is draw some toucans. We are going to eventually be painting that and drawing details with oil pastels. But today we're going to do the outline in pencil and then go over that with oil pastel. In my video, I'm going to use a Sharpie so you can see, but everybody else is using a pencil. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to start near the top, and I'm going to do the top curve of that head. So on my paper, I'm looking at my example. It starts down just a little bit from the paper and it curves in like this. Okay, now I'm going to do a diagonal line. It's just slightly slanted. See that? That comes down about that far. I would say that's about 2 inches. And then you're going to do another one that comes in the opposite direction. So this, it almost ends up looking like an L, but it's slanted at the bottom. Okay, now I'm going to do the top of the toucan's beak, and these are really long, friends. So we're going to do just a slight curve, and it's going to go all the way to the edge of the paper. Now today when you're drawing, you want to make your spaces and shapes nice and big. The reason for that is we're painting and mixing colors in each section. So if you make your spaces too small, it's going to be very tough to paint later. Okay, now I'm going to add the bottom curve, and that's going to slightly curve down instead of up. I'm now going to find the middle of my beak and draw a horizontal line across. I'm going to come about where that L is, maybe a little bit past it, okay? The bottom of the head, or where the neck is, should kind of meet up with the head or pretty close to it, but it might come out a little bit because there might be more feathers and fluff. So I'm going to start, and I'm going to do an inwards diagonal line that comes a little bit right past where the beak starts. So again, it's about where that diagonal is, and it comes out just a little bit. I'm now going to do the chest, and that's going to curve out. Okay, I'm going to add this little detail. It just starts where his wing is. Please don't get too close to the paper. Mine could probably come up even a little more in my example. So I'm going to do up, just a curve that kind of comes in and angles down towards the chest. Your curve does not need to perfectly match mine. I'm now just going to do the top of the head. Usually around the outside edge of the body it's black, so I'm just going to do a line that follows the top of the head. And now I'm going to do about right here a circle for the eye with a filled in circle for the middle. Okay, friends, so we have that done. Now you're going to have to create a resist, and how we're going to do that is using an oil pastel. Now, if you haven't used oil pastels in a while, it's very similar to a crayon, but it's a lot smoother and more vibrant than a crayon. That's nice. It really pops up really well on your art. Here's the challenge. If you draw with crayon, a lot of times you can rub your hand against the surface after, and nothing will happen. With an oil pastel, if I take my hand and rub it against the oil pastel on my paper, it will smear. If I get any on my hands and touch my paper, it will create fingerprints. So I want to try to be very careful to not touch my paper with my opposite hand as I'm drawing, and to also not rub my hand against it as I'm working. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to trace all my pencil line. I'm going to go throughout the beak. Anywhere that I have pencil, I'm going to trace. So go ahead and do that, friends. Okay, so as you notice, friends, I went in and traced everything. I was very careful. You don't notice any fingerprints. I didn't touch the oil pastel with my opposite hand. We're going to go in and fill a couple places with the black where the toucan would have black on his beak and body. So over here where the beak meets the head, you're just going to thicken that line a little bit and make it darker, because that space is usually got like a little bit of black. And then at the very end of the top of the beak, there's like usually a curve of black as well. So I'm going to do a little curve from the top of the beak to where the beak meets, and then I'm going to fill that in. Notice how I'm keeping my hand up as I'm filling in. Now this little area on top of my head, those 2 lines in that space, I'm going to fill in with black as well. Okay friends, so we're not going to paint today. We're going to talk about the color wheel and colors that are next to each other on the color wheel called analogous colors. Why we're talking about those colors is when you're painting and mixing colors, you want to use colors that mix well together. And colors that are similar always mix really well. So by using this tool, the color wheel, helps us know which colors are going to work with each other. We're going to start with the background above the beak, and you always want to start with the background of any type of art before you paint the subject. We are using tempera cakes today, which are similar to a watercolor, but they need a little more water to work. So I'm going to pick any color from my color wheel, okay? I'm going to start with red. I'm going to need to get a little water on my brush, and if the tempera cakes are not wet at all, you're going to have to wet them a little bit with your brush. So I'm going to move my brush around, and you're going to have to move it around a little longer than you would with watercolor. I'm then going to outline the top of my toucan's beak and head, and I'm going to now paint the area above that. So I'm going to go in, follow the outline the area like you would with coloring, then fill the space. If your brush seems really dry, you're hearing scratching noises, get more water. If your color looks too light, get more paint. Okay, perfect. I have that top done. I want to add another color, so I need to make sure I clean my brush. And again, friends, with painting, you want to push light on that paintbrush. I don't know if you remember when you were younger, but you want to keep the brush pretty close to together when you're using it. I call that ballerina toes because your top of your point when you're using it is close together. All right, so what is next to yellow on the color wheel? I have orange or green. So I'm gonna pick one of those that I want to use, one of my color neighbors, not both. I think today I'll do, I'm not seeing any green in here, so I am gonna do some orange. So before that yellow dries, I'm gonna go in and I'm gonna mix a little bit of orange with my yellow in some spots. I can get more water on my brush if I want that yellow to be lighter, and I can always go back into with the yellow as long as I have a clean brush, that original color. Perfect. So now that I have the top done, I'm going to work on the bottom. I'm going to decide to use the same color families, but you can do different analogous colors. So I'm going to get my yellow again, and I'm going to outline the neck and around the bottom of the beak. Get water, get my orange, and mix a little bit of that orange. Okay, I'm now going to do the same thing at the top beak. I'm going to start with any color of my choice. I'm going to do blue this time. And in that top shape, I'm going to go in, outline it, and then fill it in. Check my color wheel. What is next to blue on my color wheel? I have green or violet, so I am going to choose a violet today. Now maybe you kind of want to stay outside some areas. Maybe if you want some of the blue to show. Maybe that blue's not showing up enough, so I'm going to go back in with a little more of the blue if I want any areas that have more blue in it. Okay, same thing at the bottom. I'm going to choose a different color for the bottom. So I'm going to do the same thing again. Find my first color, then find its analogous and paint it in. So outline the bottom part of the beak, and then my background and my beak done. The bottom of my beak, I chose to do orange and red. And here I have a pink in this tray, so I'm going to get a little bit of pink. Now every tray might have certain colors that are different from others. It just is based on what colors might have ran out. So if you don't have pink, just pick the next color you like. Now I'm going to do this area around the eye and the area before I get to my chest. So I'm going to outline around that. Once I've outlined that space, I'm gonna go ahead and paint the inside. Okay, so I always get asked, well, what's pink on the color wheel? I don't see pink. Pink is just really red, friends. So it's just red with white mixed in. So you're gonna see what's next to red if you choose a pink today. I think I'm gonna go with the violet and see how that comes out. All right, friends, so as you see, I kept a couple areas still pink. Now I'm gonna go into the bottom section. I can repeat color combinations, but I think I'm gonna start with the yellow again down there. Okay, so since I have not done a yellow and green yet, I found some green. Because if I look at my color wheel, yellow and green are next to each other. And I'm gonna go in, make sure there's enough water on that green. And all right, friends, that's looking good. We're gonna do more details on it next week when it's dry.